There you go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Crypto Q&A show here on the CryptoCast Network. Today, I have with me a really cool guest, Leah Wald. You might know her from a few appearances that she has on the Toned Vaves show. She's pretty popular, I think, in the Bitcoin community. Yeah, she's does a lot of hosting and stuff like this. And she has a pretty cool background in the financial space with traditional stock markets and also with cryptocurrency. So hi, Leah. Thank you for being with us today. Can you say hi?
Yeah. Hey, Heidi. I'm excited. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So the idea here is we take some questions. We take your questions from the chat box, all you guys who are watching right now, thank you for joining today's video. We have the super chat ability. So if you want to help support this channel or be sure that your question gets addressed, you can use the super chat and we will pay attention to those. We will also, of course, be addressing any questions that come into play. Also, if you want to support the CryptoCast Network via Bitcoin donations, there is a QR code and address that you can find on the CryptoCast YouTube channel. So, Leah, and while the questions, when they start coming in, I will address those, but I have some that I want to address for you.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay, you are a fundamental analyst for traditional markets. Is that accurate to say?
I wouldn't say it, to be honest. It was the beginning of my career, I would say. Well,
okay.
The beginning of my career was actually at the World Bank. I worked there for quite a long time. I started when I was 19, but after business school, okay, but after I was seeing things, sorry. But yeah, right after business school is when I first landed on Wall Street, and it was more of a fundamental analysis position, correct? I mean, so it was macro trading, but I think a lot of people actually don't understand so much the differences between fundamental analysis and TA because they really are married, and especially, so I was working for a large hedge fund, an activist investing hedge fund, so you're going in and out, you're buying whole companies at times, right? You know, like majority of the float. And we were specifically very focused in Asian equities and Asian markets. So buy out companies, sometimes even do an LBO, but when it hits your price targets, right, you sell. And that's not a pump and dump. It can be very manipulative, and that's an ethical question. But I'd say they go hand in hand. But if we were to divide the table, which in crypto, there's the TAs and not so, I wish there's more FAs, then I'll go on the FA side.
Okay, cool. Thanks for clearing that up. Yeah, you have a super interesting background, and you started pretty young, which is awesome. So I did check out your on your Twitter profile. You have a Medium article that you posted like back in August, and it was talking about the Bitcoin bear market, and that was back in August, and we are still surviving this bear market. You had a pretty cool. Pretty interesting, I think, analogy for like other cryptos compared to Bitcoin, and called other cryptos coal and Bitcoin was diamond. And you said that all altcoins will go to zero based on that's their fundamental to their existence, and that the public just hasn't realized that yet. So I wanted to ask you, well, first of all, do you think that this might sound like devil's advocate a little bit, but so do you think that like inferiority predetermines extinction for cryptocurrencies? Like it's because it's inferior to Bitcoin, or what do you think it will take for these altcoins to go to zero eventually?
Sure. They are inferior, right? I mean, so right. I started actually writing about the bear market in March. And so in different ways, and because of Hyperwave with my partner, Tyler Jenks, we were really able to ride it well. But to answer your question, yeah, at least when I first entered the space, you know, and especially when all the coins were coming out, I wrote about this even before the article that you're talking about, which is just a lot of these coins come out and they say, well, we're going to take a little bit from Bitcoin and we're going to create this new thing, and it's a little bit better, but it's always a little bit worse. And there just simply is no other Bitcoin, right? Absolutely not. There can't be. And so all intents and purposes, they're absolutely inferior, and we could go into why, of course. But does it proceed? What does the future look like? They will go to zero. When? Not sure. But right now, especially, I mean, we're in a bear market, and if you want to take it back to just traditional markets, as much as people love to fight me on this one, Bitcoin is a asset. I mean, it's an asset class, just like asset classes and traditional markets. I would see Bitcoin as really alts as a sub asset class to Bitcoin, to be very honest. And yeah, I mean, they drop harder, right? Today, I think Litecoin went under, 36, Ethereum under 200. Bitcoin is not doing well either. Absolutely. On all indicators for TA, we are not looking very good. But why will they all go to zero and Bitcoin will stay? Although, we don't know how low it'll go. And actually, it is debatable, one, what Bitcoin's future really looks like. So that will also, I think, affect the alt. One, just in regards to what will Bitcoin actually look like when we get down that road. But two, actually, if you read Saifedean Al-Musa's The Bitcoin Standard, there's a little line in it, and actually that was from the Mises Institute interview, where he said that if there is really one thing that could actually lead to the death of Bitcoin is if we went back on the gold standard. And to be very honest, given what's happening in the frothy traditional markets, what's happening with the Fed, what's happening with the interest rates, I mean, the Dow just got smashed on Tuesday. And it's been in talks since Trump entered office, right? So of going back on the gold standard. So just to be honest, that will absolutely smash the alts, but also because it will be devastating for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, you can continue if you have more. So actually, just to continue on that, like, is it possible for the US to go back on the gold standard after all of that, the paper trading of gold and stuff, and like the proof of like the gold storage and the proof that the gold actually exists? Do you think it's a feasible option to go back to the gold standard after this?
Yeah. I don't think it's a great option, but absolutely it's feasible. I mean, it's just very different times, right? So the gold standard was established in Bretton Woods 44, right? And that's also when we began, the World Bank was established, the IMF was established, and we went on the gold standard. I think it was 72 that we went off the gold standard. I'm going to be quoted on air here, but I think it was during Nixon, although I am probably maybe getting my presidents wrong here, which does happen in my brain, even though I'm a Washingtonian. But is it possible? Absolutely. It's been done before. And when it was done at Bretton Woods, it took weeks to establish that, right? So it stopped working. But could we do it better now? Is it possible? It's absolutely possible, So again, I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'm not a huge gold bug, although I've been following gold for quite a while, especially with Tyler, again, my partner with Lucid. I mean, he is brilliant at trading gold, so we do follow it. And again, its relationship in traditional markets is just good fun. But your question, I believe, is specifically, is it possible? It's possible.
So okay, so here's to say if like with the Fed and printing money and all this stuff gets really crazy with interest rates, wouldn't something like new and provable and hard money like Bitcoin be a better option than gold for them to use as a standard?
So when you say them, I think we do need to clarify, but in regards to, I believe I know what you're saying, obviously. Is it a better system? It could be a better system. Is it right now? Absolutely not. I mean, again, end of the day, absolute Bitcoin maximalist, and I believe that it will win. But what it will take to win, I believe, is really the conversation that I think needs to be had more in our community, which is that I think we need to come together. Yes, scrape off the coal or barnacles, which are, I will say, and I know that we differ on this opinion, but all that they are barnacles on Bitcoin's boat. But yes, to come together and to make sure that that Bitcoin and the fundamentals behind Bitcoin right now make sense and are in a place that actually could lead to that potential future. Now, right now, they don't, right? I mean, SEC has no idea what to do with Bitcoin or the rest of the alts. Let's not even go there. But, CFTC, I mean, SEC is kind of figuring it out, right? But they're still like on the fence. There's really no, true action. There are lawsuits absolutely coming down on certain, especially shitcoins. Sorry, that came out. I work with Tone too much. But just in general, the ecosystem's totally screwed. And what I would point to the most, and I do find this to be fundamental, because just bringing it back, fundamental analysis is really looking at qualitative, but also quantitative, right? But qualitatively, if you look at the media, and this is something that I think, you know, pisses off all of us in the crypto space, is that it's cryptocurrency, right? It's not differentiated for the most part of Bitcoin or even Bitcoin Ethereum, you know, from the rest of just the shit that's just, you know, utter blatant scams. I mean, which is 99%. Which luckily, actually, Bloomberg, I think it was 5 months ago, reported that 50% of alts have already gone to zero. I do look forward to the rest of them, but they go to zero for really very apparent reasons, because they're scams, and that's hurting investors. And investors have been hurt, and they continue to be hurt. And this like system makes no sense, and they're confused, and exchanges get hacked. And yes, I'll put this on record. So I spoke at a summit, which was the Washington Elite Summit this past Friday with Tyler. And one of the presenters before us was from Bitcoin Private. And I did speak with him, and he had a me slide and also was talking about the privacy aspect. But it was hacked and had a 51% DDoS attack 2 months prior. So, you know, again, you know, this is totally screwing up the ecosystem on top of all these forks, and no one understands it for the most part, of people wanting to come in. So I will actually like flip it back to you, because your pinned tweet is about bull markets. And for the most part, it seems like you're quite a permabull. And I did read a lot of your stuff. By the way, great writer. Really appreciate the work that you've done, and watched a lot of your videos as well. But to flip it back to you, because I'd be very curious as to your thoughts, if we can make this kind of a fireside chatty thing. Sure. Cool. Is that you do seem very, very knowledgeable about fiat currencies, and very vocal about, you know, that Bitcoin would really be a much better standard, a much better store of value. Absolute should replace, if I can say that. It seems as if you're saying it should replace fiat currency. That is just absolutely screwing up. So I would love to hear your thoughts, pretty much on the same questions you just asked, but you know, on what you're trying to say there.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that, I definitely think that Bitcoin, or I agree with you that Bitcoin could be the standard that, you know, because like, okay, gold is not tied to any one government, you know, or a country. Bitcoin's the same way. Why is, you know, so easy for a country to use gold as the standard rather than just regular their fiat currency? And with Bitcoin, it's provable. You cannot print more. You can't counterfeit it. It is traceable, so it's not exactly like, with chain analysis, they prove that it's not totally for criminals, you know, to use like the best option for them. But in regards to this, what we're experiencing with like inflation and hyperinflation, I think that it's so blatantly obvious that this is something worth investing their time into understanding. If they're truly interested in the betterment of, you know, the people that they're governing, why not provide them with a solid financial, you know, solution like Bitcoin can prove? And it's, I mean, Bitcoin's been around for 10 years, but it hasn't really seen the type of scale that it would need to see to have, you know, a global application. And also, like you were saying with the regulations too, with the SEC, I remember actually it was in July, I think this past year, when they were first announcing if Bitcoin was going to be considered a security or not, and kind of lumping it with like Ethereum. And that was, I think, the first time I really felt like, well, no, Bitcoin is fine, but it's the other ones that like need the regulation. I never really felt that before, but like when you group it all together, like you cannot deny, yeah, that there's been thousands of scams happening, and, you know, people just print out, copy and paste a white paper. And then I also have some feelings on like, you know, self-educating and self-regulating in ways, but yeah, I guess the truth is projects need some kind of regulation, some kind of framework to work within, so that they know they're not going to be pounced on in the future. But yeah, I think Bitcoin is the most promising option that we've had in the past, I don't know, thousands of years for something that is provable money. So Yeah.
So that's very interesting. So on that, if it were to replace fiat, how would it work? I mean, that's the main argument for the most part in Bitcoin, and is very divisive, which is that it being Keynesian versus Austrian economics, and just if we want to say about, is it fiat currency, right? If how do you see that working?
I'm sorry. What?
So the question is just simply, so you're talking about that it could and should replace fiat currency, especially given you give the example of inflation and hyperinflation. So if Bitcoin were to replace that, if you could just elaborate further, I'm just really curious, what would that actually look like?
Well, how Bitcoin is divisible up to how many decimals, and I mean,
like when people use, like to buy their coffee.
Like Lightning Network and atomics, and well, no, not atomic swaps, but like the Lightning, like those things definitely need to be developed, and off-chain transactions and things like this. But yeah, then you get into the whole thing of off-chain transactions, and it's not on the actual blockchain. And if that goes into being what's the real Bitcoin at that point, yeah, there's a lot of things to explore with this, but
yeah, no, definitely. And I think that you were, if I watched your videos correctly before, that actually you're quite knowledgeable about the tech solutions, and maybe we're just early, as an example with Liquid and Lightning, right? Maybe potentially if that this could add to that, the developments potentially in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I do want to talk about a little bit about fundamental analysis versus technical analysis, and kind of how that plays in with cryptocurrencies, because that's something a lot of people coming from traditional markets have had a trouble trying to put Bitcoin in the boxes, or like trying to describe it in ways that fits in with things that they're used to. So like determining like kind of the intrinsic value of Bitcoin is maybe, like, for me, I don't come from super deep financial background. So I know as a fundamental analysis in terms of the financial sphere, it's looking at the company and different kinds of ways that that payment or whatever is actually valuable. But for me, I think of it more of like in a human interaction way, of like the intrinsic value. When I think of something that has, like the only thing that I can think of that has true intrinsic value is like water and food, because as a human, that's what we will ultimately need. But in terms of like Bitcoin, what do you see as being giving it intrinsic value for people, or to assess it as an asset?
Sure. I think in finance and what you're talking about, intrinsic can be used differently. The intrinsic value within fundamental and technical analysis is going to be the price, and everything put into the price is going to be correlated, at least for TA. So it'd be, for the most part, the supply and demand that's happening at any given period. Although intrinsic values and the interesting aspects that it provides for all of us, yeah, absolutely, we can totally talk about that. But to take it back to, I think you're giving me two questions, so yeah, I'll have fun with that. So fundamental analysis, absolutely, to what you're saying, is trying to determine what's an undervalued asset, then buying it and hoping for shareholder gains, right? And that people understand that it's undervalued, they make money, or an overvalued asset, and hoping that the market then sees that accordingly and it drops in price, and hopefully you shorted it correctly. So that's pretty simply put. You're absolutely correct. You're trying to understand the intrinsic value. Again, it's taking it into consideration, because with fundamental analysis, you're looking at the books, right? I love my spreadsheets. I'm not so great with tones candles. So with that, you're looking at, I'm not going to do the equation, a bunch of ratios that take into account liquidity of the company, but also just, as an example, if, okay, these are just publicly traded companies, but if we also want to do, let's say, private equity or venture capital, or some of the other forms of finance, you're looking at governance structure, right? You're looking at the team, right? You know, again, a common phrase is, do you bet on the jockey or the horse, right? And for the most part, in fundamental analysis, or just in, I would, if I could just lump me, because I did work venture capital for 2 years as well. So just from the investment community, you try to bet on the jockey. And what that means is you're betting on the CEO to be able to lead the horse to the finish line. But Uber being an example with a terrible CEO before, or right now with Elon Musk's very ridiculousness, but he's a brilliant visionary. Yeah, actually, that's potentially an interesting situation of intrinsic value, of that he's a great leader and a very bad manager. But that's definitely its own conversation. So yes, you take into a lot of qualitative situations, governance. You know, who do they have on their management team? What type of advisors do they have? What are their product launches, right? What's their brand equity? What do people think about it? I think that's where, if you want to, I think what you are thinking of for intrinsic value for the crypto ecosystem, where there's so many shit coins, is that they have really, really bad brand equity for people that are trying to buy. And unfortunately, I think that's spilling over into Bitcoin right now, which is also why we're just terribly in a bear market that I think is going worse and worse. It is not looking good right now. Tyler and I have about a 3K price target right now, and sorry to everybody listening, but you know, Tone, I believe he put 1,300 today as a potential on the show, and Tyler and I are even a little bit lower than that. So yeah, so the intrinsic, interesting values, intrinsic being maybe intrinsic to yourself and heartfelt of Bitcoin. What do I find really beautiful and interesting? God, I mean, I hang out with Tone, Jimmy, Giacomo, and Rodolfo, and Tyler way too much that like it'll get me too excited about talking every single pillar of it. But everything that you mentioned before, that I believe you did, but especially one that rings dear to my heart is unconfiscatability. If we even want to tie this whole thing back to gold, which, yeah, anyways. But yeah, there's beautiful values that I think provides a lot of merits. Absolutely. That makes Bitcoin unique. If we want to go specific to Bitcoin, not shitcoins, that absolutely does provide it a lot of value. However, in the markets, right now, that is not accounted for regarding speculation. So for hodlers who, and in principle, regarding the value of Bitcoin, I absolutely 1,000% with all my heart hope and believe in its future of hitting millions. And I can't wait to buy it at the very low dip and go all in. But right now, no, we're terribly in a bear market. And therefore, for speculators rather than hodlers, it's going to continue in a bear market because those intrinsic values are just not outweighing desire to buy. And again, if you want to, because we're playing with two divides here, playing with traditional markets, I mean, it's already scary enough in traditional markets. I mean, our yield curve, well, you're looking at the inversion of the yield curve right now, if you want to talk about the Fed. So it's just dangerous. But regarding two sides of the divide, the intrinsic value for buying, and also is just the supply demand is not looking good for Bitcoin right now. And that's it. Everything for price just comes down to supply demand. It's really that simple. Last thing, the demand function for Bitcoin, whether it's early adopters, right, hodlers, whether it's smart money, dumb money, whatever you want to call it, is just not outweighing the supply right now. So it's just, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, that's it's painful for the hodlers to watch. We're like, come on, guys, just hang on there, believe, or educate yourself at least in something so you can, you know, make it a little easier on yourself. So just a reminder for those watching this video, Leah Wald with us today. If you are enjoying this awesome chat, like this video, share it with friends so other people can learn something and yeah, learn some cool things from Leah. So if you have a question, feel free to drop it in the live chat. Keep it to crypto, please, and maybe specific for Leah. We'd appreciate that. So another question, let me see. I had some pre-made questions preparing for just in case the chat's not quite doing it, which it's not right now. Let me think. Oh, okay. So I do kind of, because you are involved, you mentioned with your partner Tyler and
Mm-hmm.
Hyperwave. And so preparing for this interview a little bit, I looked into that, and it's pretty interesting. So am I correct in thinking that Hyperwave is a type of pattern recognition that you can apply to many different markets? And is that correct?
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. And it pretty much it follows, you know, we've all seen the chart of like euphoria and then depression and and all that thing. So how do you see Hyperwave applying? Okay, also, wait.
Cool.
Sorry.
No, I like it.
Does Hyperwave take into account both fundamental analysis and technical analysis, or how, I mean, I'm not trying to get like Tyler's secret recipe for how he came up with it, but like, how does it work its magic? Or is it something like that's kind of predictive for a market, or how do you apply that, I guess?
Sure. Yeah. And Tyler's actually found over 350 different examples of hyperwaves throughout different markets. So I guess to start off, because it is very similar to, I know exactly, the market psychology chart. I think that's what it's technically called. So all hyperwaves are bubbles, but not all bubbles are hyperwaves. And for the most part, yes, you know, that psychology chart, whenever anyone looks into behavioral finance or economics, you're getting very similar situations. Now with hyperwave, it's very, very different because, again, 350 examples, right? So traditional markets, you know, so the NASDAQ from, you know, to various Asian markets too, but specifically equities. But anyways, to better answer your question for Bitcoin specifically, so it's 7 phases, right? And they follow an absolute typical pattern. And that's exactly why for Tyler and I, with Lucid Investment Strategies, right, we were able to ride it to the highs of December, and at 17.8, sold. It sold for us and sold for all our clients. So they were very happy with us. And then, you know, on the way down, was able to call it publicly. So that's actually why we started our YouTube channel. Tyler was just calling it, and it was very silly. I was the worst live caster in the world. If I'm sure some people here have seen it. It was like a backwards B, like not tilted like B cash, but like literally the B was like the wrong direction. And it was because he was just calling it. He saw that it was in a hyperwave, and that we were to answer your question about psychology, the FOMO stage, that's just not sustainable and did not make sense regarding, as you were asking, fundamental and intrinsic analysis. I mean, it was just being, we talk about FOMO all the time in the Bitcoin community. It should never have reached that high. But that also shows that it's going to burst. It's going to come back down to reality and steady levels. Well, not steady, it's Bitcoin and in general, but at least that irrational behavior of the market is going to burst. Regarding hyperwave, it completed its hyperwave, so it finished all 7 cycles, which is also why sorry, I totally got on a tangent. I got excited because it's hyperwave. No, because Tyler was calling it, and so I was like, Tyler, you need to get this on record. So we started a YouTube video just so that like we'd have like it dated with digital permanence, like his calls. And then we only sent it to like my parents, and like, you know, we had like 5 views, and like we were like, can you like it? I didn't know how to do anything, and then all of a sudden like people watch, and it was so much fun. But it was like it was actually not so much the purpose. It was like just permanent record, and so it's been a funny ride.
Very nice. Yeah. So okay, so what do you think? Because there are some people who think like technical analysis just doesn't work with Bitcoin or with cryptocurrencies. What's your opinion on this? Especially, you know, your buddy with Tone. so what do you think with, you know, the TA skeptics? What do you say to that?
I'd probably ask them what they're talking about, and they sound like pretty bad traders. Right? Like, again, Bitcoin is an asset class just like all other asset classes on traditional markets. The fun thing is it's just more volatile, and you gotta be on your game. But again, it's because of TA that hyperwave exists. I mean, it's TA plus FA, you're correct. It does absolutely factor in because it's a long-term trend, right? So versus Tone, who's absolutely brilliant. The way that he has been able to take, actually Larry Williams first developed the sequential system, then Tom DeMark actually took it the next step further, so the TD sequential, okay? And then Tone really, I truly, and that's why Tyler and I, follow him every day, but was huge fans even before I met him. Took it the next step further, which, the random number generator, whatever we want to call it, the new developments that he's done to the system is just absolutely brilliant and accurate. So even if you want to just take that one system alone, although obviously if when you follow his show as well as ours, we're looking at a myriad of technical indicators. Actually, Tyler and I are doing a webinar on Saturday where I think we're taking into account almost 30 different technical indicators. So you should always throw on all of them to get the bigger picture if you're asking TA. But you did evoke Tone's name. So specifically, even just with the TD sequential, I mean, I'm pretty sure that they usually put it at almost 85% accuracy of just the TD, and then Tone made it even better, which is the most ridiculously, insanely high, like one indicator to predict stocks if you just think of risk ratio, right? And so then let's say you overlay it with your own systems. I mean, yeah, you're just a bad trader if you're not doing very well. Although, again, with cryptos, you're just dealing, I should take that back actually. You're dealing with really terrible manipulation of the markets in a way that you'll never truly see in traditional markets. So there's ways that you can be squeezed out of trades that shouldn't have happened due to Tether, as an example, or other things that should have not have happened. But that's just black swan stuff, I would truly say, or just just crap that belongs in this market because it's so unregulated. And I don't mean just regulation for the libertarians who are going to try to come after me after the show. But yeah, I mean, if you have Roger Ver as, or any of these cult-like leaders or just any of these centralized coins that they can do anything, or just the recent Bcash fork and really dirty partnerships, you're just not going to get a fair market at all. So yeah, there's always potential that your trade is not going to be a trade that would have in traditional markets gone differently. But at the same time, why are there so many speculators? Why is Goldman Sachs involved with, Circle, who purchased Poloniex? Why are there so many trading desks? Why has Fidelity started mining 3 years ago? I'm sure not that many people know that. Because they were enjoying speculating on Bitcoin. And what do? Yes, they are trading it. So if they're not going to be successful at it, then why would they do it, right? I think that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard if someone says that TA doesn't work and they need to wear their tinfoil hat. Sorry for everybody that's going to kill me on that one later. Actually, I'm not sorry. Please do.
You're entitled to it. Don't apologize.
Nope. It'll be fun.
So I watched, I don't know if it was the most recent video with you and Tyler. I think it was like on December 3rd. You talked about Bitcoin and that scary number of $1,000, and then I think he said like, or 7 or 6, like it was like nothing, and I was just like a dagger in my heart. But okay, this is certainly not the first bear market that Bitcoin has seen, and we saw one that lasted 2 years before. But the thing that I keep thinking is back then it was people who were invested in Bitcoin back in 2012, 2013. They were really invested in the technology, and they weren't so much, in it for the Lambos at that point, I don't think. So for Bitcoin to go from this epic high, being, pumped by like the mainstream media, people taking their investment advice from like a newscaster, and then from them to see that high, to see this $1,000 or less, how long do you think I just feel like it's a different game at this point with different kinds of investors, in Bitcoin. I know it's like shaking out the weak hands or whatever, but there's like a lot of weak hands. So I don't know. I guess what I'm asking is, how long do you think this bear run will last if it hits $1,000, and what could possibly be something that could break it out of the bear market?
Sure. 1000% that this is a different time period, and different people entered the market with the FOMO. Regarding weekends, I don't know about that statement, only because I think it's prudent investing to have gotten out. I'm happy that we did at 17.8. So hopefully we're not just weak. So it's just right now, again, to go back to you, why are we going to stay in a bear market? And I don't think it's weak hands. It's that why should someone jump in right now? You know, the technicals don't look good. The ecosystem is still totally screwed, you know, and, you know, it's just not a good investment. Right. So, you know, if we do keep talking about, and let's say even just say tone sequential right now, you know, but Tyler and I, we also use the sequential, right? But we also use hyperwave is a long-term trend. We use a consensio. So these are more long-term trends. I should just preface for this show for listeners, and then to finish up your question is just, you know, there's brilliant TA technicians in the space. One of the biggest things and why I love having Tyler and Tone on together is I believe they're so beautifully complementary. So again, a lot of the systems that we talk about, Tyler and I, he's an investor, right? And Tone is a brilliant trader, right? And so you really are thinking about it and looking at it two different ways. But especially when the long term, the midterm, medium term, and the short term all converge and don't look good, you are in lots of trouble. So what is it going to take and how long will it take? That depends on us. I mean, truly, I know I sound silly like a rally call here, but yeah, right? Like if we could shake out all these scams, absolutely. If we can raise the price of Bitcoin by shaking out these scams, by proving that it's a really interesting, financially interesting speculative instrument, that it has the potential, which it does, to be the standard, the Bitcoin standard, then we could end it it could be months, right? But if we don't, right, and all this crap still goes on and everything will just keep going down. I mean, we could be, I'm gonna say sorry to everybody here right now, we could be in this for years. Suck. Totally suck, because you and I absolutely love Bitcoin, but could be. It depends entirely on us. So then it could be months, but right now it definitely isn't looking good, fundamentals and technicals. So that's kind of all she wrote for me on that question.
So how do you think institutional investors will handle, like, say, I don't know that they're necessarily flooding in now. We have like Fidelity kind of dancing around with Bitcoin, but let's say, you know, the bull market returns, we're all happy-go-lucky Bitcoin owners again, and then institutional investors finally start adding Bitcoin to their baskets. How do you see them dealing with a bear market? I mean, they're obviously, hopefully, going to be selling at the top also, and I just keep thinking, it's just, I keep getting back to this thought that like Bitcoin's always going to be volatile. I used to think, you know, oh, institutional investors would come in and everyone's going to pour in and Bitcoin's going to kind of flatline and be boring. But I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be Bitcoin's future. What do you think?
Bitcoin's been super boring for a long time. It's like only finally doing something.
The stable coin. But it's the wrong kind.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Unfortunately, it's the wrong way. But oh man, Tyler and I have just been like pulling stuff out of our butts of what we're going to talk about on our show. We want to talk about Bitcoin. So regarding institutional investors, and strategies for a bear market, dollar cost averaging is popular right now. Sorry, a friend just messaged. But yeah, shorts, which is bad. But I mean, there's ways that they're playing it, you know, but there's different types of, again, smart money, whatever you want to look at. Novogratz, it just came out, right, that he had epic losses. I think it was $110 million. It just came out of losses for the Galaxy Digital, I think. So, I mean, it's just, yeah, they can make a lot of money in bear markets. Absolutely. I mean, one of our last webinars with Tyler was Portfolios webinar. We talked about inverse ETFs. So specifically this, how do you grow? And again, this is traditional markets, but I'll explain how this ties back, is how can you grow your portfolio in a bear market? And you absolutely can. You can beat the indexes and the benchmarks, you could blow them away. And actually, it was really funny. Like, what we did is we asked people who were attendees to throw in, it was called the random walk theory, so the random portfolio, to give us stock picks, okay, and included crypto, okay, all of them. And there was almost 200 people that joined that webinar. So we got the most ridiculous amount of equities, okay, and different things. And so securities, I should say. So anyways, we put it into a portfolio and we did it against the Vanguard, and it outperformed by so much. I mean, so there's just, it's not true that you always lose money in a bear market. You just need to be a prudent investor. Not that many, as one example, right, in inverse ETF. But again, actually, so it was Rothschild that said blood in the streets, right? Which, as you probably know, means that the markets are tanking, right? But actually, the rest of the quote, and I'm not going to say I'm quoting this because I'm probably butchering it right now, but when there's blood in the streets is when you should buy, even if it's your own blood. So actually, there's buying opportunities, and there are a lot of opportunities in the bear markets. Now, for Bitcoin, and it's just we're looking at a very different bear market. And yes, it is. We did love the volatility. Bitcoin is its own fun animal, and that's very true. So this is just a different bear market. But yeah, if we need to separate the different type of investors we're talking about here. And again, right now, if we want to look at it, we're in silly season of Wall Street, which is just that, like, you know, people want their bonuses, right? So because you were asking about institutional investors, and the way that money managers get their bonuses at the end of the year during this silly season is they'll drop into illiquid securities, not good picks, but specifically illiquid securities. And then till the end of the year, then they will dump them. And it's just so that they can outperform their competitors and get real fat bonuses. So we have like a really weird couple months anyways for traditional markets. And again, the traditional markets are looking terrible beyond that silly season, as well as if we want to throw in geopolitics right now. You know, obviously China and Trump is top of the news, everything else. So yeah, unfortunately ain't looking good. However, yes, if we're talking about playing this market, you can play it totally and make money. Absolutely. And a lot of people do. We just had Ugly Old Goat on the show, and he is a incredible position trader. And he will always talk about the different trades he makes. And you know, and Tone did his short. He's brilliant as well. So yeah, there's money to be made. It's just, it sucks that we're in a bear market. And I think one of your tweets was that, well, to the effect, I know what you were saying of that everybody's a genius in a bull market. It takes very seasoned investors to and that should invest in a bear market. Correct. It's very, very difficult. I think you wrote that on one of your Steemit articles.
Yeah. And yeah, don't be emotional. It's hard to be objective in a bear market, especially if you have a faith in the cryptocurrency. So let's see. There was one question in the chat box. It might be a little dramatic. Might cause drama. That's what I've been
good.
Okay.
Hit me.
From Germa. I get what you were saying, Leah, about TA, and technically right now BTC isn't correlated with the USD, but wouldn't the ultimate black swan, which is why BTC was made, ruin all TA, USD hyperinflating? So if the US dollar...
I am not sure I fully understand this question, but I'll take it how I think she's trying to say it. One, of course, it's not correlated to the USD, and also that's why stable coins are not actually stable. So is there supposed to be a comment here also about stable coins? I think that just answered that that's incorrect. Sorry, Germa. Yes, but correlated, that's a strange word. And I do really appreciate like specific definition meanings of words. Okay. And then, but wouldn't the ultimate black swan, which is why Bitcoin was made, ruin all TA? Why? What are you talking about? There's always black swans, and the best TA practitioners talk about them. I mean, sorry, am I going to stir up drama? Great. All right, I'll stir it up with you, Germa. So that's just a truly incorrect statement, everything you just said. And happy to explain why. So this is about a bit of a lesson. So irrational behavior in markets, I mean, this has been studied for quite a while, quite a while. And you have behavioral economics and finance. And also, Heidi, anytime you want to step in. But, you have Schiller's animal spirits, you have Mandelbrot, who, even brings up equations that don't make sense, right? Black-Scholes, CAP-M, and that's for fundamental analysis, that specifically they don't make sense. And the reason is why within the equation is that they do not allow, specifically it takes independent time periods. So that times are independent of each other, which they're not. So if FOMO happens, right, absolutely they go together. But those equations aren't able to do that. So then you have these crazy misbehavior of the markets. Okay, and we make irrational decisions. And now, so if you want to say that's fundamental analysis because it's behavioral finance, it really isn't. Regarding TA, the belief is that everything shows up in the price, that it's priced in already. So is it a black swan event? We're going to have loads of black swan events. They happen. Absolutely. They've happened throughout history. You've had flash crashes. And yes, that's the nature of things. So I'm sorry, but your question makes no sense to me.
Let me see. Here's another question. When the next
I'll take that hyperinflating, but yeah, keep going. This is just fun.
When the next economic crisis hits, what will happen in adoption and price of Bitcoin, in your opinion? So do you think Bitcoin will suffer as well? Will everything go down, or do you think everyone will rush to Bitcoin?
Wait, sorry, I couldn't find that one. Can you reread that?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
When the next economic crisis hits, what will happen in adoption and price of Bitcoin, in your opinion?
I think we're looming on a recession right now. So that's pretty tough, because I don't think that Bitcoin is going to be adopted right now as, people are raising, it's kind of funny. You pinned a tweet by Peter Brandt, which I did think, was quite different from what you typically have been tweeting. So actually, I'm curious on your opinion. Peter Brandt was talking about raising cash, and raising cash being a position strategy. So what people are doing right now with this market is, utilities are going up because that's supposedly safe right now, or they're raising cash, getting out of the markets, right? And that's also why you have, hedge funds, very good names in their quarterly reports showing that their net long exposure, they're shrinking, they're putting into shorts. So, it's happening now, and we have bear market that's continuing in Bitcoin. So they, in my opinion, are not correlated. So I guess my question to you is, one, how would you answer that? But specifically, you have Peter Brandt, which his comment that you retweeted was, that being in cash is a position, and that's correct. And most people, and Tyler and I, recommended raising cash right now. But then you seem to be a perma bull, and that the most important thing is, that you believe in the Bitcoin being superior to fiat.
Yeah, but right now Bitcoin isn't accepted everywhere, and to be honest, not a lot of people accept Bitcoin. And what's your best bet is getting like a Bitcoin debit card, which aren't always accepted, which have been pretty unreliable, especially, traveling abroad and stuff. It's not always like, there's a lot of places where I go that only accept cash, and they're definitely not technologically advanced enough to even have like a credit card machine. So yeah, I agree that right now we're not seeing the infrastructure for the support of Bitcoin globally. But I mean, yeah, I don't know what it takes for this epic shift to happen from fiat to Bitcoin, because that is a big, I think, psychological barrier. I think maybe a lot of people, say it's a generational thing, that once, our generation grows up, it's going to be more widely accepted, but that's a long time to wait. I mean, if I know for my sake, if an economic crash happens, and say like the US dollar hyperinflates or crashes or whatever, I'm going to want to put my money in something that I think will in the long term be valuable. And yeah, so I mean, it's like a personal thing also, but I don't know. I mean, like right now, Bitcoin isn't, I don't think, at the stage where people would flood into Bitcoin right now if a crash happened. So yeah, I would say cash would be what people are probably going to do.
For your portfolio, you mean right now?
Yeah.
Regarding a recession, you that people would go into cash? That's what you're saying?
Well, it's it's what, or gold, or something that's been traditionally, I guess, more stable, albeit manipulated. But if it's between a fiat currency from a government that you don't necessarily trust, or a cryptocurrency that maybe is untested, or a precious metal that has been around for thousands of years, maybe gold. I'm not sure.
Do you want to take the next question?
Yeah. When the next economic crisis, let's see. Hold on.
Sorry, my dog going crazy. I'll mute myself for a second. But yeah, ready anytime on your next.
Okay. I guess this is like pretty much the same question as that one. Okay. I really covered a lot of the questions that I wrote down.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
If you believe in Bitcoin and your Twitter feed is very much Bitcoin focused, then why do you, I saw you talking about affiliate codes, and that's one way that you can self-sustain yourself on crypto. And also you take you take donations and stuff in other coins, and you do talk about a lot of other coins. So I am just a little confused why you do seem like a multi-coiner, but maybe Bitcoin has your heart. But what are your thoughts on, if I could flip it back, you were saying before that, that I do think it's charcoal. Do you disagree with me?
I don't think that it's going to be Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency left standing. I think that there will be, even though they might be inferior either in security or smaller network, or maybe not as good developers, I think that there will always be, because it's open source, I think that there will always be another cryptocurrency. And yeah, just people are free to have their opinions and support a project that they believe in. It doesn't always have to be Bitcoin. I mean, I understand the value that Bitcoin has and why it was created and the strength of the large network that it has. But I think that there will always be someone who's trying to create something new. And even if every cryptocurrency coin that exists right now, if it were to go to zero, I think there's still going to be another one that's created. Maybe not in this bear market, but I think as long as there's a bull market, there's always going to be, new coins trying to take advantage of that. But yeah, I mean, we see it in, like, there's lots of different applications for different cryptocurrencies. Like with Steemit, with the amount of transactions that Steemit has, there's like a lot of transactions on that, because every vote, every comment, every interaction on Steemit is a transaction. And so that, I think, has a very specific application for their coin. To integrate cryptocurrency in your world, I don't think, like right now, unless Bitcoin until Bitcoin has all of their second layer, third layer, fourth layer applications ready to be applied to what everyone needs, there's going to be alternatives. So those are my 2 cents.
Sounds good. Well, before I'm too provocative, I will honor your time. We're at 57, so.
Yeah. Share with everyone who's been watching a little bit about where they can find you more, what you'd like them to be learning more about. And yeah, here's your time to
show myself.
Yeah.
Well, I'm totally shilling Rodolfo and Open Dime here today. And probably even like more. I swear to God, like, the thing is, like, now I get like really, really cool like clothes, and I'm so fortunate, but it's all boys' clothes, which I also have no problem with, but I just feel like all like adulting has gone out of my life, which is a great thing. But on the street, I'm sure, you know, like either I'm confused as a boy or just no problem. But so anyways, more shilling. It just looks so silly. And I think I have a like a hashtag reckless hat back there that I got as a nice gift as well. So okay, where can you find me? Tyler and my channel. So that's Hyperwave, but specifically you can go to Lucid Investment Strategies. So Lucid Investment Strategies or lucidfunds.com, and that is our firm. We recently got the most incredible developer ever that made our site, and I'm just super, super excited to start shilling our site right now because I'm super, super excited about it. Just as I'm on Twitter. You can see me linked here. But what's more important to me is my business partner. And so he's at Lucid Investment. And yeah, so Lucid, just to say, so what I actually do to hopefully pay rent, not always, but maybe sometimes, is Lucid Investment Strategies. So specifically as an asset management firm, something we didn't talk about that really bridges Bitcoin and traditional markets is GBTC. If you're familiar, which is the Bitcoin Investment Trust, which is the only security on the NASDAQ that actually invests in Bitcoin and provides safe exposure. So anyways, ticker GBTC. So we have an asset management firm, very large, institutional investors, high net worth individuals, and we're able to therefore invest in GBTC and give them safe exposure through their portfolios, although we have absolutely been out at 17.8K. For them with GBTC, although you can play GBTC interestingly with the premiums and discounts, and Tyler is an expert on that. So there is that. Lucid Investment Strategies has been around for a decade, and now also since we went complete head first into Bitcoin, even though Tyler is actually mining a year after the white paper, and I will say on this show, got his head handed to him at Mt. Gox. Sorry, Ty. That we do a lot of consulting for specifically how do you invest in Bitcoin. So to the thesis of this show is how do you become a prudent investor, but also trader. We have a lot of fun, stubborn clients who just love their shorts, and that's perfectly fine, but we help them through it. And as well as just also some day traders. So we invest, so we consult, do a lot of educational classes and webinars and workshops about how to understand Bitcoin, specifically from an investment perspective, but also TA and how to apply these TA techniques beyond just the TD sequential or other systems, but really understand the MACD, really understand the RSI, really understand all these acronym alphabet soup that us, well, I'm not a TA, but TA practitioners talk about all the time. So that's a bit more of what we do is, at least in the Bitcoin world, is a lot of crypto portfolio outside of the asset management firm, because obviously with fiduciary responsibility that comes with the territory of asset management, all we got is GBTC, but at least we got that for now. So yeah, so for your Fidelity account tonight with your retirement account, you can buy some GBTC and maybe try to pump Bitcoin a little bit.
We'll take all the help we can
get. Yeah. But yeah, I guess Twitter, but moreover, just I would, I'll show my brilliant partner who started more lucidinvestmentstrategies.com.
Very cool. I'm really glad that you were able to take part in this chat. Learned a lot of things, and you imparted a lot of knowledge for our viewers, I hope. I know that you did. Whether they absorbed it or not, I don't know. Thank you for joining us on the live crypto Q&A show on Thursdays. You can find us every Thursday, noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern, or 8 p.m. Western European time if you're like me. We have a variety of guests, and we love to take your questions. So find us next week. Don't forget your questions. And you can find me on Crypto Tips on YouTube. Also, I do some kind of beginner type videos, tutorials, how-tos, if you're interested in things like that. So see you guys next week. Thanks again.
Thanks, Heidi.
Yeah, thanks.